Hey, welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to be taking some more stuff off the engine. Mainly all the coils, the fuel injection system, and the intake manifold, and maybe some other things we get to it, like namely this. The coolant tank, get that out of the way and get this intake the rest of the way out of the way so we have all the room to work and get to our goal of getting the engine stripped down and eventually taken out. Like I said, I want to clear the engine off as much as possible so I get the engine pulled and then disassemble it the rest of the way when it's on an engine stand. Now in my case, as you could tell, one car garage. So not a lot of room. So my plan is to eventually push the car out into the driveway since it can't drive right now and pull the engine, bring the engine in the garage, and start taking it apart, rebuilding it, and do it that way so I'm not leaned over the fenders and I have the hood in the way and all that fun stuff. So ultimate goal, get the engine out and start rebuilding it so we get it back in. What that looks like, I don't know. Probably a fluent situation, whether the transmission comes out, whether it doesn't come out. So we'll play it by ear with that. We are going to start by removing the ignition coils. We're going to get that all disconnected. It looks pretty straightforward, just that plug, all the spark plug wires, get them disconnected, and we'll see if we just lift that thing out of the way. So we'll give it a go. Let's get at it. Okay guys, just real quick what we're looking at. So there are 5 studs that we got to take out in order to pull off this whole coil system. So you got one right here on this corner, one right here, another one right here, one there, and then there's just a regular little bolt right there. And then you unplug this and then the whole thing comes up. Now first we got to disconnect the spark plugs from the coils, and then this whole thing lifts out. Show you an example. This is the driver's side. Did this first, just give it a little test run. It was simple. So as you can see, all the coils are right there. So pretty easy. Let's dive into this and get the other side done. Okay, so obviously first things first, pull these plugs out. Ow. And then of course this far back one, which is ridiculous. Ugh, there we go. And then get the bottom out. Ugh. Ugh, there we go. The struggle is real. Okay, so like I said, 10mm socket. Get a deep one because 4 of these 5 bolts are studs and they have little screws sticking up. So we'll start back here. Get this guy out of the way first since it's the most annoying. Then 2 is up here. Okay, so what I found on the last one was I took all the studs out and this thing wanted to fall before I disconnected this. So I'm leaving one stud in and I'm going to pull this little blue thing out. So this little blue clip here, you're just going to basically just pull on it gently. Don't go crazy, but eventually it comes out. And this thing came apart pretty easy. So I need 2 hands for this. So just pry up on this a little bit, give it a little wiggle, and there it goes. It's off. So now you're disconnected. Now after you take out this last stud, this thing's gonna want to fall. And just like that, we have our coils out. It literally took me less than 10 minutes to take both of these out. Not a bad little job. So if you're replacing your individual coils, it may actually be better to take it out because the plugs are really tiny. You probably could squeeze in there, but if you take the whole thing out and you want to change your coils, this is probably the best way to do it. It takes 10 minutes, and then you can easily get to the plugs. You could disconnect the coil itself and get to the plug, which is right there, there, and there. But as far as I know, I'm keeping these coils. We'll play it by ear with that. Maybe if I work some overtime, I'll get some nice ones, but I don't think it really needs to be the nice ones. But we'll see. Once the engine's all cleaned up, maybe I'll be like, these eyesores need to go. But we'll see. Alright guys, next we're going to the fuel system. So there's a little cap here. Twist this off. And that'll reveal a little pin that you could push. And that's going to bleed our fuel line of all pressure. So I'm going to put a rag down here, and I'm going to press that little detent in there, and hopefully I don't get douched. Handy dandy rag. And then I got a flathead screwdriver here. I'm just going to press ever so gently to try and, oh, there it goes. Not a lot in there. That's good. All right, so there's no pressure in the fuel system because it just would have bled out. Not saying that there's no fuel in there, there's just no pressure. All right, next we're going to disconnect the fuel line. It appears that this is the only part. This hose could be replaced. There's another fitting over here to disconnect it. But this is the one we want to disconnect to get it off the fuel rail. It just looks like this pops off. So we got that. And then scooch it forward and get this little clip off. All right, so I want to get this wiring harness off of here. It's behind this power steering tank. So if you get a screwdriver in there, you can pry this back and lift. There it goes. So now the tank's out of the way. So the goal of that was to get to this clip. I could either, looks like open it up from here or just pull it off entirely. I'm probably gonna pull it off entirely. So you got this little dopey tab right there. Looks like you just squeeze it with a needle nose plier or something, it'll come out. So I got my needle nose, I'm gonna squish down on it and hopefully push it in. And I have achieved success. Oop, one more plug down there. There's a, I think it's an engine temperature sensor. So that is the last thing. Push down and unplug, that comes out. Okay, so a couple plugs out of the way and now we are free. Just gotta disconnect this little guy. Just disconnect, lift. All right, that's all. So now this whole wiring harness is disconnected. So that whole setup is for whatever that plug's for, the fuel injectors, the temperature sensor gauge here. Okay, so that plug's for the headlights. You gotta unplug that. And then the couple of sensors on the throttle body, those gotta get disconnected. And there's one for the air conditioning right there where that little brown thing is. So once you disconnect that, that wiring harness lifts up, and let's see if we get our fuel line disconnected. Okay, let's see if we got the right tool here. Let's try the smaller one, see if we get in there, push it forward, push in, and I think we got it. There it goes. I'd use a smaller one. I don't think it gives a size, but whatever, it doesn't give a size. We do have some fuel leaking out, so I got this rag here to catch it, no big deal. I have a feeling it's gonna leak more when I lift the whole thing out. Another thing I did, these little clips were holding on the wiring harness. I did not want to break them, I could not get underneath, so there's literally just tape holding it on, so if you're careful and you score it with a knife, it'll peel off and you could save these. Now, I don't know if I'm using this fuel rail again. The intention was to use this fuel line again, but we're gonna see about that. There's just a couple other things you gotta disconnect back here. You can kind of see the clips right there where my finger is. That's a vacuum line for the brake booster. Now, somehow you gotta get back there. It goes to the back of the intake. We're gonna try and figure that out, but right now, just gonna disconnect the other side of the engine from the wiring harness, which there should not be much more over here. Passenger side is way more wide open. There's no fuel line to bleed. Okay, now we're gonna try and do the passenger side of the vehicle, get all the wiring harness disconnected, and we're gonna see if we could loosen the intake manifold and pull it forward so I can get that brake booster vacuum line disconnected. But first, you can take a knife. There's just a little bit of tape here, just be careful. And just score that to separate it from this clip if you're going to reuse it. So right now that's off, and do the same here, and now that's free. So the only other thing to do is there's little metal clips right here. Now I was taking a flathead screwdriver just popping them out, but they fall out, so have a magnet handy and try not to lose those because you're going to need them again. So we'll disconnect these real quick. Like I said, just pop a screwdriver in and try and land it there. I got a magnet, so I'm going to scoop them up at the end. Pop that out. Oopsies, that's gone. And then another one here. So I got my handy dandy magnet. sticking to everything. So I got 1, that one's gone, 2, 3 right there. And the other one hit the ground, so I'm going to dig that one up real quick. Now these things, for the fuel injectors, the clips, or the plugs I should say, they just lift right off. There's really not much holding them on. They just lift right up. So now we get this wiring harness out of the way and just tuck it out of the way. That should be good right there. One thing real quick too, this little clip right here. To disconnect that, you just push down, figure out a way that this pushes down. So you're gonna push it down and then you're gonna pull it out and that'll take care of that. And just like that, it's off. So there's a little bar right in there. So you wanna come down through the top of this, push it in, and then you should be able to just lift this right up. Okay, so let's try this. So there's a little tab, that thing pushes up, pulls off, it's out of the way. Quick thing I forgot to mention, guys, this little bracket right here for the throttle cable. These are just two 10mm bolts. I already loosened them, I'm gonna take it off, and you should just be able to coil it up over here, get it out of the way. There's a little clip right there on the fuel rail. So yeah, just take that off, get it out of the way, remove that clip, throw it over. Okay, so hopefully we get the intake manifold off now. There's 5 bolts on each side. They're 8mm sockets. Hopefully we can pick this up, scooch it forward a little bit so I can get to that vacuum line and see what else is plugged in back there, because I really don't have a good view. So I'm going to be lazy. I'm going to use an impact gun, and hopefully this doesn't mess anything up. Had to get a little extension with a little swivel socket on the end. That thing. Let's see what we got. Beautiful. Now you could get that vacuum line off. So a little vacuum line down here. Let's see if that pulls off. There we go. Okay, a little vacuum line back there. Got a pair of lineman's pliers, because this one decided to be a wire instead of one piece. So slide that out of the way. Try a little screwdriver down, get that in there. Really don't want to destroy this. Okay, so the vacuum line is now off for the brake booster. I don't know why that was fighting, but it was. And then, ta-da! Okay, we got our intake manifold off, and as you can see, yeah, each cylinder's got a little bit of oil in there. That's probably from before the catch can on, just 20 years. This thing's never been off, so that's about all I can say about that. The valley cover looks like it's in good shape. You got one plug there. I'm not sure what that looks like. The crank positioning sensor right there, and I think the plug next to it, I think that might be the oil pressure sensor. That oil pressure gauge, I want to see if there's a way to put an adapter on it, so I can take the one that comes from the sandwich plate adapter and move it up top. Okay guys, I took the new fast intake and the stock one just to do a quick comparison. Everything looks like it'll work out pretty good. So as you can see here, you got some studs holding the fuel injector rail on. Here. Looks like you have provisions for that. And there's a vacuum line here, which matches up with this little plastic one here. You got it here, you got it here. And this already has some of the bolts in it. And here's the hardware kit. It comes with a bunch of other stuff with this intake. Where the throttle cable hooks up to, you're going to drop some nuts in here and then bolt it in through there. On the back side, on the stock one, you have this clip, this vacuum line. There's another vacuum line down there. Now, as far as these go, I believe this, I haven't dug it out yet, but it looks like it may go in that hole there. And then also the brake booster is also present on the new manifold. And then there was another smaller vacuum line that went underneath here. Trust me, it's there. There's a little vacuum line. This little guy. So that's going to go here on the new intake. More about this hole on the new intake. Like I said, this sensor is probably what that's for. But as far as the two intakes go, it looks like everything will seamlessly transfer over. We'll see when I get to that point, but it looks like it'll go. So yeah, that's gonna end this video. So thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, friggin' ignore it. I don't care. And I'll see you in the next one.